Hello and welcome to House of Cult. My name is Alessandro, and with me, as always, is Ariel, the owner and founder of the Pretty Cult. Today, we are super stoked to be chatting with Skyler from the Philadelphia-based metalcore outfit Varials, who are set to release their pummeling fourth studio album, Where the Light Leaves, on February 27th via Fearless Records. Like I mentioned before we started recording, we have a ton of stuff to touch on, but first of all, just, how's your day going?
It's good, man. I got my coffee. Got a little work done this morning before we were jumping on this, so it's off to a good start so far. How about you?
It's going
Also have
good,
my
yeah.
coffee. Got my
Yeah.
coffee. Yep. Because it's
Yeah.
10 here, so I'm just getting going.
Yeah, it always feels earlier because I'm initially from Oklahoma, but I'm always out here doing the varial stuff. So my timing now, just with the time change and stuff, still kind of gets a little messed up. But it's 1:08 here right now.
Oh,
Yeah,
damn.
people don't realize. I think we've joked about that with some other band on this podcast. Like, people are always like, oh, when you go to Europe or Japan. And I'm like, no, the most fucked up I get is a 3 hour time difference.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, when it's just enough that my body is like, I don't want to go to bed right now. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's 7 o'clock at home,
Right.
And I'm like, that screws me up because I travel a lot with the brand more
Mm.
than like when I go freaking to Japan or Australia. I'm like, oh,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
just a full day ahead. Like, whatever, I'm just gonna adjust real quick. But like the 3 hours is like brutal, and people don't
Yeah.
realize that.
That one's always the worst. Yeah, I remember we were in Europe last year and like we had just gotten done doing like a full tour with Throne around the States and Canada. So we like immediately got off that, went straight into Europe for a month. And I remember I felt so like jet lagged and like discombobulated for at least the first like 2.5 weeks because like the time difference was like such a big change for me. But yeah, anytime I'm flying back out here, it's like I gotta like adjust my mind. I'm like, okay, when it's when it's 3 a.m. here, it's 2 a.m. at home. So that's when I know I need to try and like start like wrapping up for the night. Cause I'm a night owl myself. So
Okay,
a lot
fair.
of stuff when I'm at home, like at night. Um, but yeah, just adjusting to the time changes is always kind of a pain in the ass. But we're doing good so far.
Yeah,
So
lots of coffee.
oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, just kind of, kicking things off, as we're talking today, we're just about a month out from the release of, the band's fourth studio album, Where the Light
Mm,
Leaves. You know, Already the band has released I'll Find the Dark, and then as well as the title track. And, just from like seeing a lot of the different comments online, it seems like a lot of the longtime fans are already kind of calling this a major comeback and a return to
yeah.
what made Varials resonate so much in the first place. How have
Right.
you sort of felt seeing that reaction so far? And does this album sort of feel like a comeback to you, from within inside the band, especially as, a newer member within this band?
Yeah, so I mean one thing that like I wanted to do when I was joining the band was, you know, like give it people a reason to like remember why they fell in love with it to begin with, 10 plus years ago. So like they had the Failure Control EP, then Pain Again, then In Darkness, and those three records for me growing up, especially because I'm a little bit younger than the guys. Like I remember my bands playing with them when they would come through Oklahoma all the time, and like that was kind of how we like made a connection and became friends and whatnot. Um, and so when I got the official offer and we were going into the studio to write, one thing that I really wanted to do, like I said, was, remind people why they love this band so much and what it means to them, while also like simultaneously kind of like showing off a new and fresh sound for what we were wanting to go for. Because I think like the production and like the instruments and whatnot, like it's a lot heavier than previous material that they've dropped. Um, but as the front man, like lyrically, I wanted it to kind of captivate the same feeling that also it had done previously with their albums before this. So um I think it's doing that. I mean, it was very exciting when the night before we were dropping off Find the Dark. uh it was funny. I said this the other day in another interview, but it was like kind of like Christmas Eve. Like I was
Mm.
like I couldn't sleep. Like I was like so like ready to just like get the day on and like read everything that people were saying and stuff like that. And obviously there are gonna be people who like complain about certain things or whatever. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But for the majority of our fan base, they were very excited for it. Um, they were really hyped, and then we dropped Where the White Leaves and announced the record, and that was just like a really, really good reaction. And I was very happy with how that one turned out for sure.
Yeah. I think Ariel wants to hit you with the next question, but I think, before we kind of touch on that though, obviously as a new vocalist coming into the band, and that was sort of my next question was how you wanted to sort of approach things while, adding your own unique flavor to the band while also, keeping some of that original DNA within there. But like,
Yeah,
how has it sort of felt, stepping into those shoes? Like it's no small feat to like to replace like an
right.
existing, well, I guess two singers, within the
Yeah.
band. Um, were there actual like, was there some nerves, leading up to that
Oh,
first time?
dude,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Even like going in with just because for the first two tours I did with them, I was just filling in for the time being. Um, I mean, I had gotten the official offer, I believe, like halfway through the Throne tour, but we were like, I like was obviously like we were so busy with the tour, so I didn't have time to like sit down and like start writing for the record and stuff. Because they had been going back and forth with this record, like recording and tracking it for I want to say like a couple of years. Um, and so like, even just filling in like for like live sets and stuff, like that was still really like nerve-wracking for me. Um, and then I'm like I said, I'm one of those people that like I go online, I like reading what people are saying and all this
Mhm.
stuff. And the reaction just to like the live sets that people were hearing was like really, really good for the most part. Um, and then obviously going into the studio, like I didn't really know like what sound I was gonna go for. Um, it was cool because Josh, like when we met, he was just kind of like, "Hey, what's up? I'm Josh. I'm happy to work with you. This is gonna be a lot of fun. Let's see what kind of noises you can make." And he just kind of like pushed me in the booth. So it was like every single day we were trying to like get that, what sound are we gonna go for? What do we want to do? Because with previous bands that I've been in, like I do a lot more like deathcore-y type
Mhm.
vocals. Obviously in this, like it's not all of that the whole entire time. Um, but I remember I had like done a line in the tone that the whole record is like kind of based around vocally, and everybody was like, "That's keep doing that." So, and then we listened back to it in full on the last day, and we were like, "This is great." So we're really excited for people to hear it for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it fits the sound so well, for
Thank
sure.
you. I
Yeah.
appreciate
Yeah.
that.
And this is kind of piggybacking off of what you guys have been talking about, but Varials has experienced several lineup changes over the years, including, the former vocalist Travis leaving in
Mm.
2020, Shane stepping away in 2017 before returning in 22 as the primary guitarist. What is the dynamic like within the band today? I mean, it sounds like it's, I mean, great. And would you say, is this the most strongest and like stable version of the band that Varials has been so far?
I like just outside of us like being such like close friends because we're like always together. Like anytime I come to Philly, I'm staying with Mike, me, him, and Sean and Shane. Like we're together like very frequently, like working on stuff and like just, you know, all like always together as like one unit. And I
Awesome.
think like when it comes to the work side of things, we mold so well as a team that it just works itself out perfectly. And like everybody's gonna like nitpick about certain things here and there, right? That's just like normal. Constructive criticism is really good. I like that we can, if we're writing something and one of us is like, ah, that's kind of like corny or like I don't really like that. Oh, okay, cool. Like I'll try and like change it up. I think that's really good. As far as like just being able to work together as like a group. Um, but yeah, I think overall, like this is probably the strongest the band has been, and I think people can hear it now, and we'll definitely be able to hear it more once like the full record is out for sure.
For sure. Yeah, and kind of, touching on the full record, you've been open about this album sort of being rooted in your own mental health struggles, particularly like the feelings of being trapped and like cycles of like negative thoughts and rumination,
Mm,
which I think you described it as mental purgatory, which I think is a great way of looking at it.
yeah.
Can you sort of walk us through the process of addressing those topics so directly in the writing? And, how cathartic was it to put those experiences into the lyrics as a way of sort of, reclaiming your power over those thoughts and feelings?
Yeah, so I mean, I've always been someone, especially in like my early like 20s, I lost my dad unfortunately when I was like 21. That was like a really hard time for me. And so I kind of like developed this like strong sense of just kind of feeling like stagnant within myself. And I made it out of that obviously, like being in a band and being able to be you know, express those emotions, being a front man, like it definitely helps. Like, you know, I feel like I'm one of those people, like I'm upset and I have a lot to say, and I think aggressive music and stuff like that is the best way I can do that. Um, with this record though, before coming to the studio, I had jotted down like a few ideas and like demoed stuff out, but like it was just like here and there, like, just random stuff that I was just thinking and whatnot. Um, but 2 days prior to me having to come to the studio, my brother passed away, unfortunately.
Oh man, I'm
And
Oh,
sorry.
I'm
so
sorry.
thank you. I appreciate it. But I got that call and then it was immediately like, all right, well, I got to go to the studio. So I didn't even really have any time to like
Oh
properly
man.
like, process it, right? And so I think when we got to the studio and I was able to really sit down and like hone in on those emotions and stuff, that was what made the album like what it is. I mean, I talk about, like I said, like being depressed and feeling stuck in your own head and just like being unable to like kind of like deal with that as a person because I feel like a lot of people go through that in life. Um, while also, having to deal with the loss of family members. And then my other brother was just like very like not in his right mind. So it was like I was just forming all of these songs around all of that. And I think the way that I expressed it lyrically and vocally, like it's not like I'm just writing bullshit. Like for me, like I had a lot of shit to say and like I think I executed that as well as I could. Um, and I hope it resonates with people because this record like genuinely means a lot to me. It's my first album with the band. Um, and I think it helped me be able to like grieve all of these emotions that I was feeling all around that time, if that makes sense.
No,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah, and that kind of, segues into my next question. Obviously, music is a huge therapy, obviously, for you. And, mental health is something that we bring up on, I feel like, almost every podcast. What are some outside, writing music, for our listeners, what are some ways that you or habits maybe that you do outside music that help you, stay grounded and deal with your mental health and whatnot,
Yeah.
maybe a message for those like who are listening to this record can also like take away with this.
Yeah. I mean, for me, for a while, I was trying to get back into the gym. I thought that was
Yeah.
like, one thing that like could always like you get upset. Like, a lot of people stem to want to go to like drinking and abusing drugs and whatnot, which like I've had my fair share of that in my life being younger and whatnot. But one thing I've wanted to like stick to was like going to the gym. Um, a lot of the times like I'll get on my notes and just write down thoughts that I'm feeling and stuff like that, not a journal per se, but just things that like come to mind. um I'm one of those people like I always try and reach out to my friends and let them know like how much they mean to me because you never really know when the last time is that you'll be able to say that to them.
Yeah.
Um, it all just kind of depends. Like, I mean, I think a lot of it just kind of resonates around like how you operate as a person in general.
Hmm.
Um, but I will say like, with all the dark times that I feel like I've dealt with, as well as a lot of like the people that are close to me, like there always is like a light at the end of the tunnel, which is kind of funny saying that considering what the album is called. But
Yeah.
um, the I think it's cool because like when I think about it like that and how the name came about, like it's meant to feel dark, but it's like anyone you're gonna make it out of it. You know what I mean? There's always a way, and if you have the will, you're gonna be able to get through that. So
For sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that, man.
yeah, of course.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on this already, like mentioning that, this record is probably some of the heaviest material, Varials has ever written. And I would definitely agree with that, as a longtime listener of the band. And, there's almost like even like these like extremely beat down hardcore moments like within this record and, the dynamics and it's so crushing and like maybe even like slower tempos in a lot of the songs too. And it's like, I'm kind of curious, was that sort of the intention from the get-go to write the heaviest album possible, or did that level of intensity just sort of come about naturally in the writing process?
So, like I said, like they had been working on this album for a few years prior to me like joining. A lot of the songs we scrapped. So like the first like rendition of the record that I had heard and like that I was writing to, we got to the studio and we ended up like cutting a lot of those songs out and like rewriting songs. And I think that was based around mainly just like Shane wanting it to be more fitting for like my voice per se. Which I'm glad we did. I did like a lot of those songs and like they may make a comeback in later records and whatnot, but um yeah, we got to the studio and we knew we wanted it to be heavy with rewriting certain things and we wanted it to be very like to the point, like just off rip. I mean, the way we like open I'll Find the Dark is kind of like how we open every song on that record. Like it's just like 100% like off rip. So, um, I think that was the intention for sure. I don't think we knew that we were going to be able to execute it as well as we did for ourselves. Um, but yeah, I mean there are songs on there that are like a little bit slower, which I thought was cool because we got to experiment with certain things that like I had never done personally as a singer, and I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, man, I mean, I think the intensity of the record was always intentional, but we kind of like leveled it up when we got to the
Yeah,
studio. That makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it feels like in 2026, I have to think about the year still, or like in January, and I'm like 25,
I keep writing
26.
2025 on certain things. Wait,
Yeah,
it's
same.
Heavy bands are really being encouraged to lean even further into the aggression rather than making more things more like sleek and accessible. That
Mm.
like some bands, in the 2010 area did with groups like Knock Loose, Lorna Shore, finding massive success. How do you view like the current state of heavy music and where do you think like the genre is heading next?
I think that heavy music right now is at its peak. Like I I was discussing this with somebody the other day too. Like I remember being young and like first finding out about heavy music and like it felt huge, right? Like
Mhm.
back in the day, like it was like when you're this like young kid just now like first like finding heavy music and like your local scene and stuff like that. Like I was like, this is giant. But like now being almost 27 years old, I'm like, no, this is like the peak of heavy music. And I think a lot of it has to do with like COVID happening too,
Mhm.
because people didn't have access to shows to like let out their aggression and like all that shit that they deal with in the week, you know what I mean, and like the months or whatever. I think it's only going to excel further. I think it's going to be huge, like even bigger than what it is right now in the coming years. And I think that's really cool. There are a lot of young bands out there that I feel need and deserve like a lot of attention. Um, and that's just like all around the states. And yeah, I think where it was like this last year was really, really awesome. I think 2026 is going to be even better. And then I think the coming years are going to be giant. I think there's going to be a major pop off in heavy music here within the next like decade at least for sure.
I definitely agree. It's completely trending that way for sure.
Yeah.
And it's super exciting. And,
And
it's
it's
still
so
kind of,
easily, I don't mean to interrupt, but I was
oh,
gonna
you're
say it's
good.
easily accessible as well now because you have like, a lot of people are like on TikTok. Instagram has always been around, but it's very like incorporated in Instagram and Facebook and all of that stuff too. So the internet definitely helps for sure.
Definitely. Absolutely. Sort of touching on that heaviness, just a little bit more. I just kind of nerding out here. Like, I think this is probably some of my favorite production I've heard within heavy music on this
Thank
record.
you.
Like, it is so. I mean, like, you guys are just absolutely maxing out the levels. Like, it's borderline like, almost clipping in certain parts or clipping in certain parts. Like,
Yeah.
it is so unbelievably heavy. Like, the production style, like, it's just so incredibly distorted. And the
Yeah.
low end is insane on this record. And, obviously, I know Josh Schroeder produced this record again. I think this is the fourth record he's done, or I guess he's done all the records for the band.
Yeah, he's done all of them except for Scars, if you remember.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious. Like, obviously, this was your first time working with him, but kind of digging into the production side, what do you think makes that creative relationship so essential to the band's identity? And, how would you say that it's sort of evolved over the years, especially, with what we're getting with Where the Light Leaves?
Yeah. So with them like going to Josh for Pain Again, I remember hearing that record when I think that came out when I was like I gotta look at this because I was young when that record came out.
That came out in 2017.
2017. So I was probably like 17 or 18 around then. And I remember hearing it all the way through and it was it was a very detrimental piece to heavy music, obviously. Monumental, some would say.
Mhm.
Um, but the production on that was so good. And then they did In Darkness, and then In Darkness was like kind of like a level up for that. Um, and then when we went in to record Where the Light Leaves, I Josh had produced a lot of the records that I grew up on, like listening to and whatnot. Um, and I remember working with him, and we were tracking a song called Conscious Collapse, and we were doing the 808 drops, and I was like, we need more. Push it further. Keep it going, keep it going. So there's a part in that song where it literally is just like fucking it cuts the like speakers out like crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean the production, like I didn't have like a big part in that. That was more so like Shane and Josh working on that. But I was in there for like the whole like process of it. And I remember I mean, we had discussed like how we wanted it to sound. Do we want it to sound clean? Do we want it to sound, just outlandishly like loud? And I think we found like the best like middle ground that we could. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think they executed that on that side of things like very well. If you listen to it in your car and you got subs, don't put it at full volume.
Yeah.
It's gonna blow them for sure, I feel like. But overall, like yeah, the production on this record, I feel like is amazing. Josh did a really, really great job. I love Josh so much. He's one of the best people I've had the chance to work with. Um, and I'm looking forward to LP5 already for sure.
I think we're going to see a lot of bands after this record comes out, and this is probably not a good thing, but I think a lot of bands are going to, when they're working on their albums, are going to reference this record sound
No,
wise,
yeah.
like, and
Which is like
really want
very,
to
very
emulate
cool
that
for sure.
sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the next single, The Hurt Chamber comes out on January 30th. What is the story behind this track and why did it feel like it was the right song to release, as the next single from the album?
So I think the Hurt Chamber was because we were kind of like in between a few, but we all pushed for the Hurt Chamber. I think one, we wanted to like show that there's still like that um emotional side per se, because this song is like kind of vulnerable, it's still heavy, but it's like a cleaner song in a way. Um, but the that song is about like pretty much like you're so like infatuated with something and you'll do anything to find it. So whether that be like being in love or you're like addicted to drugs or whatever that might be, you'll follow it even though you know it's like not what you should be doing. And it's just like a repeating cycle. Yeah, I'm excited for this song to come out mainly because it's one of my personal favorites on the album. It was one of those songs where we were recording. I did the cleans and the screams like all in one take, and then I had like a few like underlayers that I added in. But we like listened to it back in the studio, and we were like, we're not touching that song. Like this song is staying how it is. And that
Yeah.
was one of those like magical moments we shared as a group together as a band. And I thought that was really cool because I'd never really experienced something like that before, especially like doing like clean singing as well. But yeah, I think like we put like the two crazy heavy songs out. Now it's like let's tone it down a little bit and give them like, people want to hear what we're like capable of doing outside of the heavy stuff, and so that's kind of why we chose this one. But it's a really amazing song, and I'm excited for people to hear it.
That's fucking
Yeah.
awesome, man. Yeah, super stoked for that one to drop.
Oh yeah.
Um, obviously just a couple more questions, but the headline tour kicks off in March, I believe, with Unity
Mhm.
TX, Heavy Hitter, and Bolt Cutter. What songs from the new album are you the most excited to play live? And we always like to ask this too, like, are there any cities specifically that you're going to be hitting on this run that you're especially looking forward to?
Yeah. So obviously we're playing a lot of new songs. And then we're playing like the ones that we thought would be fitting for for like the older material. I actually have the set list right here. I'm excited to play obviously the Hurt Chamber. Your Soul Feeds is one of my favorites from the record as well. Silent Demise is a very good song. And there's another song called Illusions of Lost that Mike and I really like. I'm excited to play that one as well. Um, and I won't name off the old tracks that we're playing, but
Yeah.
like the fan favorites, they always go off. So I'm stoked for that. As far as like cities and stuff go, this is a biased comment, but like I'm very excited I'll have my first official show in my hometown in Oklahoma, which
Nice.
that's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that because a lot of my friends are excited for it. Um, I I mean, pretty, but like out of like just that and like obviously playing Philly, like all of these cities that we like are hitting, like they're some of our like favorites as a group.
Hmm.
So I can't like pick or choose like certain
Sure.
ones. I think every show is going to be amazing. We're really, really excited for the tour for sure.
Yeah. It's such a great lineup too. Like,
Yeah, I was very, very happy with the lineup. We like when we like confirmed it and everything, because obviously we had a few other bands that we were asking and scheduling didn't work out. And then we wrote this one up and everybody was good for it. And we were like, okay, this is a good tour. Like this is gonna be really, really fun. So and it helps that we're like friends with a lot of these people that are on it as well. So that's gonna be sick.
yeah, that's
Oh
awesome.
yeah. Switching gears a little bit, since we are a fashion brand, we always ask some
Mhm.
sort of fashion question. Um, what do you kind of gravitate towards fashion, maybe on stage or off stage, or any items that maybe help you feel complete or confident, even if that's on stage or off stage?
Yeah. So I have a specific shirt brand that I hated wearing the first few times, but now I will never go back to any other shirt brand, obviously, unless it's like an old piece of merch. Shaka Wear.
Oh
I
yeah,
love
of
Okay.
course.
Shaka
Yeah.
Wear. It's like my favorite brand now. Like I hated it because I kind of have like a wide neck. So when I first was like trying one on, I was like, this is so fucking uncomfortable. Uh, but once I got used to it, I was like, I'm never going back. So my stage fit is always like Shaka wear blanks. I have these new like cargo. I'm trying to think of what brand they are. I think they're just like Wrangler cargos, but they like resemble Carhartt cargo pants really well.
Sick.
And then I just wear my Vapor Maxes, my Nikes on stage. Those are my favorite shoes ever. So yeah. If
I'm
I
a
if I don't
fellow Vapor Max guy.
yeah, if I don't have
Nice.
one of those three, I'm not having a good day.
Fuck yeah. That's
So
awesome.
what we're saying is Shockaware needs to sponsor you and give you some free t-shirts.
I would love that. And we print on them already, so if we can make that
Yeah.
happen, that would be huge for sure.
I work for a record label, and a lot of the merch that we produce is we use like typically like Shaka or Comfort Colors or like
Yeah.
Lane 7 typically is like
Comfort
what we're
colors is
going
good
for.
too. I'll rock a comfort colors if that's all that's available. But like if
Yeah.
I gotta have my shock wear, man. I just have to.
Yeah. I mean, that's nice. You guys are printing your merch on Shaka. I mean, like that's definitely such a better blank to be using than like, like the really shitty
Gildan.
like Bella canvas or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with Gildan. I like, I mean, my other band always prints on it just because it's like always like a rush word, so we're having to like get that done very fast.
Yeah.
But like, there's so many like good t-shirt companies, and it's kind of hard to pick and choose. But yeah, Shock is the one for everybody. I feel like right now.
Yeah, Gildan's not as obviously ideal with a lot of blanks, and I also do my own cut, and so Gildan is not bad. The thing is, it's just not like fashion forward. Like I feel
Right.
like, because they have stuff that's not as thick. Everyone thinks about that thick, scratchy, shitty t-shirt we all have that's Gildan, that we love
Right.
this. So many band tees. I'm like, I love this print, but I'm never gonna wear this t-shirt. The
Yeah.
problem is like Shaka, Comfort Colors Lane 7. It's also like about the fit, which a lot of
Yeah.
people don't realize. It's not just the material, it's, that it's not
The
too
way it
tight,
fit,
the
you know what I mean? Like,
boxy.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
No,
if
I totally
Gildan could get up on that at those price points, that would be sick. But
take notes. Take notes, Gildan. If
take
you're
next,
watching,
Gildan.
take
Yeah.
notes.
Yeah, it really hasn't changed since we were like in high school, like buying
No,
shirts at like Hot Topic,
It's been
Like,
the same
no.
forever, dude. Gildan's been the same since I like came out of the womb. So
yeah,
Yeah.
it's so true. Kind of switching gears, just two more quick questions. Another fun one we always like to ask our guests, like, if Varials' music could soundtrack a film, television series, or video game, what would you want it paired with? And, why would that be and why?
man, that's a good one. I would love for I don't really have like a specific film in mind, but if the Hurt Chamber was in like a weird like if somebody was going into like this like rave in like a dungeon and the
Mm.
chorus of
Mm,
the Hurt Chamber was playing, I think that'd be really cool. I think it gives off that vibe. It's like when I think of the Hurt Chamber, what comes into my mind is like Queen of the Damned mixed in with like The Matrix, if that makes
Fuck
sense.
yeah,
yeah.
That's how it
definitely.
like kind of that's like what the imagery in my head kind of feels like. I would say for like a heavier song, maybe like I'll find the dark and like a badass like skate movie. Like they're just
Mm,
like there's like a mosh pit going on with like a ramp and people are doing like fucking trade flips down a stair set or something like that. Something like
Fuck
that would
yeah,
be cool, I think. Yeah.
super sick.
I like the
Yeah.
Hell
Queen
yeah,
of the Damned and the Matrix
Just
visual.
combined into one. Yeah.
Yeah.
that's hard for sure.
Yeah. To close things out, thank you so much for joining. Is there anything you want to share, highlight, obviously for 26 as the new album cycle fully unfolds?
Yeah. Where the Light Leaves is out February 27th. Tour starts March. Why did I almost say May? March 12th in Detroit. We're out for a month. Make it out to a show, buy the record, come say what's up. Um, and yeah, we'll see you guys out there.
Hell
Fuck
yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you so much, Skylar. I really appreciate it. This has
Yeah,
been
thank you
great
guys for
chatting.
having me. This was fun.
Of course, man. Well, have a great rest of your day. And yeah, just congrats on the new record and everything.
You as well. Thanks so much, guys.
Have a
Hell yeah,
good one.
man. Later.
Later.